From the highest of mountains to the deepest of concrete jungles, the world is strange and full of mystery. Join us as we descend into the dark and explore the strange wilderness.
Welcome to Strange Wilderness, the show that takes you out of the comfort of your homes and pulls back the curtain to show you the strange and untamed world we live in. I'm Ginge, and my co-host Matt STFU and I invite you to join us as we investigate the things that go bump in the night. Do you have a story you'd like us to read and discuss, or possibly suggestions for future topics to cover? Send us a message over on Twitter at strangewildernesspod, or send an email to strangewildernesspod@gmail.com. Thank you, and enjoy our descent into the dark.
What's up, explorers? It is I, the Matt, here to just let you know that about 30 minutes into this episode, a little over 30 minutes I should say, my audio makes like dubstep and starts to sound like robot fornication. So I apologize for that. I tried fixing it as best I could. It's by no means perfect, but in my opinion, it is something that you can still listen to. And given the fact that this was a very good conversation, a very good community submitted story, I want to keep it. So I hope you enjoy nonetheless. Hey, what's up, explorers? With how the Strange Wilderness podcast has been growing, and with how well my insane ramblings and Ginge's uncorruptible yet somehow corrupted innocence has been received, we decided to create a Discord server. Because what good is the strange and wild if you're not with friends?
Facts.
Did you know we had a Discord server?
I didn't know.
Neither did I.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's the shadow government has infiltrated our ranks and has created a Strange Wilderness Discord server to tell you the truth that we're not going to tell you.
And to spy on us, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mentioned in the last iceberg that the CIA has been slowly introducing mimetic agents into my food and drinks, and as such, it's turned my brain into Play-Doh. In any event, this Discord server is called the Strange Wilderness Adventure Guild, or SWAG, because you know what we have? Not swag.
None.
But in any event, this is a server where we can all hang out, have a conversation, most likely consisting of words built into sentences, and, you know, just be friends and share spooky stories and all that fun stuff. Anyway, with the creation of this space, we have decided to dedicate specific episodes that are geared more towards sharing and discussing terrifying tales submitted by you, the community.
The people that matter the most.
Exactly. I mean, we're just like faceless entities shouting at you from the void. You're the ones who make all this possible. I mean, at least I don't have a face. I don't know about you.
I don't. I'm like okay, I'm not going to get into it, but I'm wearing somebody else's face.
Oh, so you were the one in Face Off. Are you Nicolas Cage secretly? Are you hiding something from me?
I can neither confirm nor deny. I'm sworn to secrecy on both ends.
I was gonna say that, like, if you take a Ken doll's pants off, that kind of smoothness is what my face looks like, except not
Oh my God.
in a crotch, but I like yours way better. Oh my God.
Oh, jeez.
We could all be Nicolas Cage and not even know it. I guarantee Nicolas Cage is the only person on Earth who isn't actually Nicolas Cage.
Welcome to the Strange Wilderness podcast.
The biggest conspiracy is if we're actually gonna get to talking about what we should be talking about.
Chances are no.
All right, so to bring this sine over cosine back to reality, that's a tangent joke for all his y'alls, but to bring us back to reality, this episode is going to be one of those community stories that was shared to us a couple weeks ago, and it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool story. I think you'll enjoy it. So, with all of that said, if you have any interest in joining the Strange Wilderness Adventure Guild, or if you have stories that you'd like to share, the link to our Discord will be in the show notes and in other places. Considering they let me in for some reason, I would go out on a limb and say everyone is welcome. So, you know, don't be afraid. We don't have faces, so we can't bite.
Do you have to have a face to have teeth?
I don't know.
Anywhoots.
Anyway, let that sink in. The existential dread of people without faces yet somehow still having teeth. Let that sink in for a second while we get into today's story. So, enjoy today's tale. I have named it Growls from the Gazebo. And this was a story shared by community member DarklyKnighted. So, thank you for sharing this story with us. Hopefully we do it justice. And yeah, enjoy this twisty-turny adventure. Living in Leadville, Colorado can be boring at times, especially at 10,200 feet. So my friends and I decided that a late night drive to the cemetery is always a good thing to do. Around midnight, there are always a few creepy things going on there. Tonight, we had one person who was apprehensive about going there, but was willing if she could stay in the car. So, 4 of us packed up and headed into the cemetery. I'm driving, and we drive to the center, where a gazebo awaits us. This gazebo is said to be haunted since, when it's painted, and regardless of what color it's painted, the paint ends up peeling off, always revealing a blood red color underneath. Anyway, I pull up next to the gazebo, about 15 feet away. 3 of us exit the vehicle, with the 4th staying in the back seat. For reference, this is an '83 Toyota Celica, so the seats have to flip forward to get any passengers out of the back. My friends Tony and Drea are already out of the car, and the 4th friend, Kat, is in the back seat. Kat had a real sense of foreboding and dread, and was convinced that something bad was going to happen, which was what compelled her to stay in the back seat of the car. As I exit the vehicle, I head straight for the gazebo, deciding to use one of the rafters to shimmy across and not touch the floor, for no reason other than to show off. Well, to my luck, it seemed that there were a few bats overhead that were disturbed by my antics, and decided to fly off in the direction of Tony and Drea as they were walking up the steps. Inspecting the paint that coated the gazebo, sure enough, the paint was already peeling off, and underneath, we found that the color was brown, rather than the legendary blood red that's said to always surface. Circling the gazebo and chuckling about the bats, I headed to the car to ask Kat if she'd reconsider coming out to us. I asked her,
come on, see? It's not that bad. Do you want to come out?
And Kat responded by saying, "Sure, I think I can handle it." As we spoke, Tony hopped off the side of the gazebo, landing on the ground with a thud. However, a thud was not what I heard. Instead, as he landed, I heard a low, deep growl coming from under the gazebo. This sound did not come from any sort of small dog, and there was no barking at all, just the growl. I should also mention that this gazebo was not that far off the ground, with 2 steps leading to the gazebo floor on the 3rd. Kat clearly didn't hear what I had just heard, since she was still in the process of getting out of the car, so I stopped her by saying,
"On second thought, we should get going. Get back in."
As Kat was asking why, I heard the growl again, but this time it was much deeper, much longer, and sounded much more demonic. Turning to Tony, I immediately asked him if he heard the growl, to which he replied by saying,
"Yeah, let's go."
As I called out to Drea, I noticed that she was already nearing the car, making me think that she too heard the demonic growling. Kat and Drea quickly piled into the back seats, with Tony hopping into the front passenger seat after them. Once we were all in the car, I tried to start it. It's manual, so I put the clutch in and turned the key, but the car wouldn't start. Thinking this was a prank of some sort, Kat said,
"Come on, quit it. Let's go."
But this wasn't a joke. The car would not start despite my best efforts, and after a few attempts, it finally roared to life, allowing us to quickly bolt from the area. Needless to say, we figured that there was someone or something under that gazebo, but with a growl that deep, that echoed for that long, it couldn't have been a small dog, and a big dog would have had to dig its way under to gain access to the area under the gazebo. I went back a few days later, under the safety of the daylight sun, but never saw any signs of digging. We still don't know what was under there. Okay, I have a theory.
All right, I'm here for this theory.
My theory is not a serious theory, but it's a theory nonetheless. What if DarklyKnighted is indeed correct in saying that it's not a dog, but because this is in Colorado, it's Randy Marsh?
For some reason, I just knew you were going to take it there. And quite honestly, I think I have to agree with it. I don't think that there is another possibility.
He seems like the type of person who would just, get high or drunk and hide under a gazebo and growl at people. So that's it. Good night, folks. Thanks for stopping by.
Adios.
It's case closed. Myth busted. It's Randy Marsh dressed as Princess Leia.
Oh no.
But in all seriousness, it's an interesting phenomenon, and this is something that I've heard a similar story from a few different accounts and a few different places where, people are pretty much in any type of location, whether it's out, in this case, they're in a cemetery, around a gazebo, or if you're in a haunted house, or a house that is allegedly haunted, I should say. Or you're, in an abandoned building, or if it's like a warehouse or something, and you hear that kind of just guttural growl. And to me, that kind of phenomenon is so much scarier than if you heard like whispering or something that would be probably considered more, ghostly or paranormal in that kind of vein versus a growl, because one, it could be an animal, and that animal could very well mess your day up. And two, if it's not, that's even scarier because, if you remember the story where I was talking about going to that church and how I heard the person breathing, it's like, I wasn't scared that it would be a ghost. I was scared that like some tweaker behind this church was gonna come out and stab my armpits. But
why your armpits of all places?
I don't know. It's a legitimate strategy. I played Far Cry 5. You stab people in the armpits in that game.
Oh man.
But yeah, it's one of those phenomenon where, the notion of demons is so much scarier than ghosts because it's not like, with a ghost, it could be a person that was just wronged and that imprint of them is malevolent because they have that, that residual anger and melancholy that comes with being killed at an inopportune moment or whatever. Demons are just like angry and they're just evil for the sake of being evil, and they will do evil things because that's what gets them off. And so you have the notion where it's either an animal, and that's scary because it can absolutely attack you, or it can be a demon, which can, I guess, also attack you. But there's the added kind of echelon to this, that they're not attacking you out of instinct or any sort of just animalistic nature. They're attacking you because it's just a Thursday night for them, and they're just like, hey, you want to go torture some humans? Like,
I guess so. I don't know if I necessarily believe in demons. This is something I've always kind of like struggled with, because why would they come up from hell or down from hell? I don't know, and wherever hell is, if it even exists, just to mess with humans. As somebody who doesn't have a soul, it's not really something I have to really worry about. But, for those of you that do have souls, a demon will probably come for you and try to suck it out. I would argue that hearing a growl wouldn't necessarily be scarier than hearing a whisper or like a breath. Actually, last night, as I was falling asleep because my husband is away for the weekend, all I could think about was, oh my God, if I hear somebody breathe next to me, like, what am I going to do? And I don't know, like, I don't think a growl would scare me nearly as much as hearing whispers or, a breath or something of the sort. I don't know. And I think it's because the logical part of my brain would simply say either A, you're hearing things because it's not normal to just hear a growl, or B, something moved and it sounded like a growl, or C, I don't know. But I don't know. I don't think a growl would scare me in that sense.
I think it would have to do more with where you are when you're hearing those sounds. Like, I 100% agree where, if I'm laying in bed and it's 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning and Vic and I are asleep and I hear a whisper coming from outside my door, yeah, I'm probably gonna need a new pair of pants. If I'm like walking the streets of Toronto and I pass an alley and I hear a whisper, I'm probably gonna pay it no attention because weird people exist and, like to congregate in alleys for one reason or another. But the reason why it would freak me out more, at least in this specific scenario, is that there didn't seem to be any indications that something was being dug. Like, there was no, like, Bugs Bunny style holes leading under the gazebo, which, to me, if you were a person, you would still have to somehow dig or dismantle this gazebo's, I'm guessing it's like a lattice or something like that kind of like fences off the bottom portion, and you would have to dismantle that or destroy it or dig underneath to get under there. So if there was genuinely a person that was just trying to mess with some people, then there would be evidence of that. And I know that they didn't stick around when it was happening to really investigate, which is smart. Yeah. Like, you're doing the opposite of what horror movie people do, so that's already you're already like leagues better than every person in every horror movie ever.
Like, oh, what's that sound? Let me go towards it. Well, no, because it's probably, I don't know, Michael Myers waiting to stab you.
In the armpit, might I add. But yeah, and so going back a few days later during the day, you're able to see that, yeah, there, lo and behold, there's nothing, destruction or any attempts to get under this gazebo to make these noises. So to me, it's like, yeah, I don't know if I believe in demons either. I think it would be equal parts terrifying and hilarious if demons existed. The terrifying part is kind of self-explanatory. They're demons. They're literally trying to corrupt and bring about, like, just pain and suffering to the people of the world.
Yes.
The hilarious part comes in the way of, like, certain paranormal events that happen that are chalked up to being demonic, where certain things happen a certain way and you're kind of desensitized to it because you've watched a lot of horror movies, and so you hear, like, the 3 taps on the wall that's supposed to mock the Trinity, and you're just like, yeah, I've seen The Conjuring. That's a little cliche by this point, don't you think? That's so 2013 Beelzebub or whatever demon name is.
Yeah, like, do something different. Like, be a man or a woman or a demon. I don't know, probably gender fluid. I have no idea. But, like, do something that is, like, actually going to scare me. Because, and this is a total lie, it's not going to scare me if you tap on the wall 3 times. Because I can do that too. It would scare me.
Like, ooh, you moved a plate. Oh my god.
Oh my god.
I'm shaking. You
all the
moved
chairs
a
are
plate.
stacked on the table. Like, that's not even scary.
Like, it's kind of like in the original Annabelle movie where the doll is sitting on the floor for some reason. Like, I understand the whole thing is that the doll is able to move on its own because it is possessed by this demonic entity, but the doll is sitting on the floor for some reason. And if you've watched the Annabelle movies, you know that, like, obviously they made the doll a lot scarier than it actually is. Like, I'll get into why I think that was a mistake once I've explained what happens, but yeah, the doll is just sitting on the floor, and the main character or her husband, I forget what the scenario was, but she turns around and she looks at this doll, and it slowly kind of just stands up and then slowly starts to hover. And then you find out that this demon, I think the demon's name is Malthus in the Conjureverse, pokes his head beside it, and it's this, completely jet black goat-headed, or not goat-headed, like demonic creature with goat horns. And when I saw that movie, I remember the people in the theater were like, some of the people I was with were freaking out, and then, you could hear gasps and stuff, and like people who are obviously scared because it's a jump scare. Ooh, big blab monster. And I laughed because, like, oh cool, you made the doll float. Ooh. Like, there's a scene that was scarier later in the movie where she runs up all these stairs to get back to her apartment, and the monster is chasing her, and you can see, like, different parts where she's looking over the railing, and you can see it's like claws on lower levels. And she gets to the top, and it's like during a thunderstorm, so the lightning is flashing and it's pitch dark. And she hears it growling, and she turns around, and it's literally laying prone on the stairs, like it's like crawling its way up the stairs. And then there's a lightning strike, and it like teleports right in front of her. And that got me. That's when I was like, okay, that would be something that would actually scare me if I saw like a black, jet black, like goat horned monster with sharp teeth that looks like, someone spray painted like a satyr sculpture out of Greek mythology, just jet black, and it came to life and started haunting me. That would scare me. But
so to me, this goes along. So the satanic panic of like the 70s, when everything that was remotely bad was like due to Satan worshipers who were sacrificing babies and all that kind of stuff. I feel like the problem is people automatically, they hear something or they see something, and it's like, because it's been like almost ingrained in our brains that when these things happen, it's automatically something malevolent, when in reality, there's probably something very, just regular out there to make it. I'm not saying the growl under the gazebo is normal or anything, and it probably is something that you should be afraid of, but I think there is such an influence on us that, like, when we see things or hear things that wouldn't normally happen, it's like, oh, automatically it's haunted, or automatically like something is here and wants to kill me. And it's like, I doubt that. But it could be the truth, but unfortunately we're just so I think, biased, unless you're just somebody who doesn't believe in it, you know, who doesn't believe in paranormal stuff, or, you know, like, I personally don't believe in possession. I don't think that's something that actually happens, because I think it's 9 times out of 10 more something to do with mental health, and, you know, that's a whole other topic to get into. But, you know, it's like, I really do think that we've just become so biased as a society that no matter what, if something crazy happens, it's like, oh, well, it was because of this, you know? I don't know.
Yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head there with kind of what I was getting at with regards to making fun of that scene in Annabelle, and with just how edgy they tried to make the doll look. Like, I know James Wan is a great director, and, you know, he did the original Saw,
Yes.
he did Dead Silence, he did the first Conjuring, which, you know, the first Conjuring is one of my favorite horror movies just because of the slow burn
Yes.
and the dread that it creates over its runtime.
Which is the best way, in my opinion, to do, like, horror movies and suspense movies. The slow burn, and then you just, like, you go.
See, and that's why a lot of horror movies now don't get the best reviews from the audience, and it's because the audience has the attention span of, like, a fruit fly, and they want the quick jump scare and the instant gratification that comes with it. Whereas, you know, a slow burn, like something out of The Conjuring or Lords of Salem or something like that, where weird stuff's happening throughout the movie, but then, like, the really crazy stuff happens in the last third or quarter of the movie.
Yep.
You know, yeah, but with The Conjuring, like, James Wan created this Annabelle doll, or I'm sure he didn't create it himself, and the doll is creepy and it's very Victorian, you know, it looks like a porcelain doll,
yeah.
and it's just ugly, and it's, you know, it's very deformed in its, like, it has very, not deformed, I shouldn't say, but it has very, like, exaggerated features and stuff like that to make it look creepier. So I have 2 problems with that. One is, if I was the girl who got that doll as a gift, I would not accept it. It's one of those things where you'd kind of just chuckle and be like, oh, ha ha ha, thank you.
And throw it away.
Yeah, and then you promptly use it for kindling. But the second thing is, the original story of the Annabelle doll is that it's a Raggedy Ann doll.
Yep.
That is infinitely more terrifying. Like, infinitely. And I think, kind of like what you were saying with how people are conditioned, is they are conditioned to see something like the doll that's in the movies and see it as creepy, and they have to have that visual cue, or else, you know, if it was a Raggedy Ann doll, they'd kind of, like, you know, that panic that comes with it wouldn't be there. And, you know, just doubling back to this whole story, I think the fact that it was a growl is probably what created that fear and tension, because I wonder if, you know, I mean, it is a cemetery and it's at night, but I wonder if they had heard something else. And I mean, we could fully ask about this because now it's a community episode, so we know these people. But, you know, the question is, like, if you had heard a whisper or breathing or something, you know, would you have been more inclined to potentially investigate? Would you have been more inclined to stick around? Or would you have that same just guttural, you know, instinctual reaction to get the hell out of there to preserve, you know, to preserve life? Like, it's like a fight or flight response. And beyond that, big kudos to, her name is Kat in the story. And the reason I'm giving her props is she's got that, like, sixth sense and that intuition to stay in the car, because she was like, you know what, something bad is gonna happen, I can feel it in my bunions, and I just am gonna stay in the car. And lo and behold, literally as she's getting out of the vehicle, they hear this growl, and it's one of those things where Buddy probably just, like, face palmed her back into the car and was just like, no, stiff arm, and we're leaving.
Oh my god, I'm just, like, picturing that happening, and it's amazing.
See, I don't have that voice in the back of my head that, like, nags at you and says, don't do that. I would be the guy who, if I heard the growl, my first reaction would probably be, did I just hear a growl? What the hell was, what? And then
Was it my stomach?
yeah, seriously, like, you know, yeah, it has been a few hours, but that's when I would then go to my friends and be like, hey, Tony, Drea, did you hear this sound? And if both of them confirmed it and then I heard it again, I would be the guy who would go and investigate. I'd be like, I want to see what's making this growling noise, because, you know, it might be a dog, but it probably isn't. But I want to see what's making this noise, and that would be me. And then it's like I said, like I would be the sacrifice. They would see me get dragged under this impossibly like thin threshold underneath the gazebo. I would like turn into paper like a cartoon and just slide underneath it. And I would just be gone forever. And then that's when they'd be like, oh, okay, cool, we actually have to leave.
Yep. So I have a theory. And so one of the things that got me with this is the paint peeling thing. So I don't know where this comes from, because we see it happen in so many things, you know, like, oh, you know, the red stain keeps, no matter what, showing up on the wall, no matter how many times we get rid of it. Or, you know, the paint peels and we don't know what's going on. And like, literally, it just brings me back to Silent Hill and it makes me so scared. But I guess like so with that and the growl, like, where does that come from? Why is it happening? And also the growl thing, for me, if it is something or someone, they would have had to have known that somebody was coming, like, or something of the sort, to be able to wait there for them, you know? And so that's a lot of dedication to get under there, or, you know, whatever, to just wait to see if somebody is going to happen to come by that night and come into the cemetery and go into this gazebo. So that just seems like a lot of work, and it doesn't seem like it's worth it.
It's actually really funny that you mentioned that, because I was literally just thinking that there are probably people out there who are they're like method actors, except they're not actors. They're so committed to their craft that this person just found their way under this gazebo somehow and just existed there and was like, you know what? It's gonna be a sick prank and I'm gonna put it on YouTube, bro.
Yeah.
They probably say bro a lot,
yes,
because that seems to be a thing in these prank videos, and just waits underneath this gazebo until someone decides to cross their path. And I mean, if that is the case, then like, kudos to you. The Oscar goes to person under the gazebo for their role in Growls from the Gazebo. But yeah, I think that's a good point with the paint peeling. So to me, that it seems like an urban legend that was kind of like half confirmed. And you know, when I first read it, I made a joke to myself in saying like, whoever's been painting this gazebo for the past 15 years really needs to invest in a different
type of paint,
you know, a different chemical compound for this paint, because clearly it's not working. But thinking about it, I was kind of like, okay, so I know people who work in industries like that, where they would paint these structures and assemble them and what have you. And, you know, to some degree, like it is one of those things where inexplicably, like, things just stop working. And, you know, they may have tried different formulas and different paint solutions and what have you to paint this thing over. And for one reason or another, it always peels. And I almost imagine it not peeling, you know, like completely off. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not like, you know, like you're peeling a sticker off and you get all of it. It's one of those things where like you're peeling the sticker off and you get like a third of it, and the rest of it is just that like sticky goo that sticks underneath the sticker that is really annoying. And I hate having to peel stickers off my laptops for that. Please, Intel, stop doing that. Anyway, enough about my personal life. And it's one of those things where I would imagine that you would look at it and you're like, oh, cool, they painted the gazebo a nice eggshell white. That's such a step up from last year's, you know, swan feather white, but whatever. And then you go and you look at it, and upon closer inspection, like, yeah, it is peeling like it's, you know, it's that crappy paint in like a kid's park or something like that, and underneath it's red. But the reason why I say it's like half confirmed is because they found that it was brown underneath and not red. Mm-hmm. And that makes me think that if this is something otherworldly, then it might not control the color, it might just control the whole paint peeling thing. And to that, it could be kind of like, you know, when you hear stories about like people being in houses with wallpaper that they put up and the house is allegedly haunted and pieces of the wallpaper are being torn off to reveal what's underneath, and you know, through whatever medium or person that can communicate with this spirit, they find out, oh well, like you're basically trespassing on this person's property, you're putting shit up where you shouldn't be, and so, you know, don't do that, it's gonna keep ripping down the wallpaper. So, you know, if this is demonic, it probably wouldn't have anything to do with the paint peeling, because, you know, that's just more of an inconvenience, unless this is like the Prince of Hell that is in charge of minor inconveniences for people. That's entirely plausible, I guess. Don't at me, but at the same point, I would imagine, yeah, at that point it could just be like a presence that is trying to ward people off from this specific location, and maybe the only way it really knows how is to use that, you know, the forcefulness that comes with a growl, as well as the peeling of the paint to kind of give you a visual and auditory experience.
Yeah.
Similar to how when you're, you know, in like a haunted house or something like that, and you're investigating, or if you're watching a horror movie, and this happens in some of them, where, you know, you first hear like the whispers and you're kind of like, meh, that's nothing, it's the wind. But then you flat out hear like a very forceful, like angry, like guttural voice just going like, get out.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, cool, message received, thank you.
Goodbye.
I won't even put my shoes on, I'll tie my shoes up in the car, it's fine.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's kind of where I'm at with that. And yeah, maybe if because it is located in a cemetery, and now I don't know, it's entirely plausible that, yeah, this is something spiritual, and, you know, it is kind of funny to think that there's like a ghost who is like, they built a gazebo over my grave, like this sucks, I need to tell them to leave. And yet he is just like, how would I do that? And it's like racking his ghost brain, and is like, you know what? And that's it. That's just it. It's just like you just default to dog growls.
Yeah. I guess so. Part of my issue is my dad was a gravedigger for a good amount of his life. So for me, I'm pretty desensitized when it comes to being scared in a cemetery, because like I would go with him all the time, and that's probably very morbid and weird. But at the same time, at night it can definitely get spooky. One, there's a lot of dead bodies, you know, like there's bodies in the ground, and, you know, obviously every horror movie comes to mind, and maybe there's a zombie under that gazebo that can't get out, or, you know, something like that. And I can understand the fear, and I guess the fact that all of them heard it, that is, I think, what makes it the most the most scary part, because it's like, if it was just one of them, it could be chalked up to, oh, you probably just stepped on something, and, you know, you heard it. But the fact that all of them heard it, and it was loud enough to be heard, and I think they said it kind of like echoed, if I remember, and that is a little terrifying, I guess, because what could make that? You know, we've already said there was no ground digging, there was none of that. So say it is somebody. So they went through the hassle of removing one of the, like you said, it's probably like a lattice thing. And so they probably went through unscrewing that and then somehow rescrewing it back on. Maybe the lattice was big enough for them to get their hands through, and they're just under there messing with things. But then what comes to mind is spiders and all that kind of stuff. And why would somebody put themselves down there? I don't know. But I mean, that with the peeling paint, and then having all three of them, or, you know, however many there were, hear it. For me, there is realistically no explanation other than I do think it's something paranormal, because I can't imagine what else it could be. Like I said, like I doubt that a human being would go through that much trouble. And it's like, if they went through that much trouble, I feel like we probably would have seen it on social media somewhere, because that would have gone viral. You know, like, ha ha ha, we got some people, you know, like we had like hidden cameras set up, and, you know, they fell for it, and that didn't happen. So it's like, I don't know. That's what definitely makes me lean towards there's probably something else at play here.
Okay, so I got 3 things.
Okay.
1, that is the best way to bond with your kid. Just take them to a cemetery. When I have kids, if I have kids, I'm going to take them to a cemetery, and that's how we're going to bond. We're going to play catch next to the allegedly haunted graves.
I mean, what's better? Nothing.
2, I completely agree that it is most likely something, at the very least, unexplainable, and it wasn't just a prank, bro, because the story doesn't end with DarklyKnighted saying, and then Ashton Kutcher and a full camera crew came out and shook my hand.
Yeah.
You know, we were on an unaired episode of Punk'd. But the third thing is genuinely a theory, and I can't really explain the growl, although a more funny kind of like whimsical theory would be like, well, I guess it's not funny, so to say, but actually, you know what? I'll get to that in just a sec, because it is kind of sad now that I think about it in my brain. But my theory regarding the paint peeling, and this is something more, I wouldn't say scientific, because then people are going to be like, Matt's trying to be smart, but you know, for reference, this is only really plausible if the gazebo is metal. Like if it's a metal gazebo and it's not one of those, like, you know, nice like wood white picket fence style ones. But if it is metal, then the paint peeling could actually be either grounded in reality, or it could be something more paranormal, because, you know, on the more real side, it could just be that whatever paint that they're using is just not, like, it doesn't have the right charge to bond with the metal. Mm-hmm. Kind of like how if you watch like a documentary or something where they're painting cars, they have to use a certain charge on the paint when they're painting it over like the hood, for example, because it'll actually bond with the metal, and that will help the paint set and stay. And so, you know, it could entirely be because of that. The more paranormal side of things is, it's been said that ghosts and other paranormal entities like ghosts can affect magnetic fields. And so what if this is genuinely a ghost and it is creating these growls for whatever which reason? Maybe the person has been a ghost for so long that they forgot how to speak and all they can do is growl. But the paint peeling comes from the fact that they are affecting the magnetic field around this gazebo, and as such, you're altering the charge of the paint that's bonded to this, you know, to this structure, and as a result, it's now peeling off because it's not bonded anymore. So that's as close to science as you'll get with me today, folks.
Yeah, I think I could agree with that. It's such a hard one, because it's like, if they had gone back the next day and they did see the digging, there would be an answer for it, but they didn't do that. Like, they didn't see that, you know, or he didn't see that. And so I really have no explanation for it. I can't be a smart ginge today, because it's like, I don't know, like, to me, there is no explanation why that would happen, unless like somebody stepped on something and like there was a speaker under there and it caused that to happen, and the paint peels because of humidity or something. I don't know. There's no explaining that.
I mean, I suppose it could entirely be, you know, like this elaborate prank that was set up where there is something that's motion triggered, or something to that effect, where there is like a speaker or something underneath that activates. It's a lot of work for very little payoff, especially if, you know, it's one of those things where people are hoping that it scares someone, but they obviously can't exist there 24/7, and so, you know, how will you know? But my sad theory, my kind of somber theory, is we've all heard stories about, you know, pets or animals that have, you know, grown an attachment to a specific person or group of people. And when that person passes away, because, you know, hate to break it to you, but everything dies eventually, the door to immortality is shut. And these animals will then go and they'll find their owners or, you know, companion's grave, and they'll stay there. And there's stories of dogs that will sleep on the grave and they won't leave their side. Cats, I've heard stories of cats that have done that.
Yep.
And so my sad theory is, what if it's not a dog in the sense that like it needed to physically dig its way underneath, but what if it is like this apparition of a dog where it, you know, it mourned and grieved over the loss of its companion for however many years until it eventually passed away, and is basically protecting its companion's like burial site, like, you know, whether it's a grave that's in an adjacent area or is just close by, and this dog is there and it sees these 4 people who are, you know, goofing around in this gazebo and is going, oh hell no, you ain't getting close to my buddy. You know, my buddy, he called me a good dog. I'm gonna be a good dog. I'm gonna protect him because I am not a bad dog. I am a good dog. And that's where the growls come from. It's like this apparition of a canine that is able to get underneath the gazebo, obviously without having to dig or destroy anything, and can make the more aggressive, you know, guttural, almost demonic sounding growls because it is tapping in through the other side or beyond the veil or whatever fancy jargon you want to use. And that's what it is. And this paranormal activity is causing a whole multitude of wonky stuff to happen. You know, like maybe I am right and it is affecting the magnetic fields and that's what's causing the paint to peel or whatever. Maybe it's consequential, or not consequential, I can speak words, it's coincidental where the paint's peeling and this stuff is happening. You know, like it could just be that. Maybe they really do need to just invest in better formula. But yeah, it could entirely be like a ghost dog. Or, since we're talking about demons, I'm having a lot of ideas today. I'm an ideas guy. And maybe the real thing is that it's not a ghost dog, but it's like one of those like black dogs, like the demon dogs.
Ooh, yeah.
Or like a hellhound or something. Yeah. Yeah, maybe it's something like that where it's, you know, like it is just like Satan's Fido or something like that, where it's you know how like demons come to mess with us. Maybe it's learned a little too much from its demonic companion, and so, you know, this hellhound, this black dog creature, ethereal being, demon monster thing is doing that too. Is just like, you know what, my demon friend has been messing with people, and so I'm gonna do the same, and maybe that's it.
I think that could be a theory. I don't know, because again, there's so many possibilities, yet so many that just couldn't be a possibility. So I don't know.
Yeah, when all is said and done, like, kudos to this group for just hightailing it out of there and not sticking around. Oh, actually, I completely neglected one thing that could also be kind of a byproduct of this. The car wouldn't start upon first attempting to start, so that could also be something that was affected, because it you know, it's been said that paranormal and otherworldly entities can affect electronics, most likely through a magnetic field or something similar, and maybe that's why the car wouldn't start. Maybe it wasn't the fact that, you know, something was going wrong in the way that, like, maybe in a panic, you know, you weren't starting the car properly or something to that effect. It happens. Like, I've been in a rush where I've been panicked and haven't started my car properly, and it's a button. So, but you know, or it could be some sort of otherworldly stuff and things affecting the battery, and that's why it was chugging along and it wasn't starting properly until, you know, 3 or 4 or however many attempts later, where the grasp on it was loosened enough that they could start the car and peel out.
Yeah, that's that. Now that you say that, I also forgot about it. I think that could have been a bit of it. I mean, every single ghost show that I've ever watched, they always have like their camera die or their light die or something like that, and it's always, oh, I just changed the batteries, and you know, the ghost drained all of my energy or all of the energy from it, and that's why it doesn't work. So that could definitely have something to do with it.
You know how I know you're not like a tried and true ghost hunter?
Why?
Because you didn't scream your way through that sentence.
Oh man, I will do better next time.
Baggins be praised. But I do agree. You watch a lot of these shows where batteries and even things that are like hard, you know, plugged into the wall outlets and stuff are malfunctioning, and they're going like, what the truck, like, you know, and you know, it's become a cliche. Just like how when you're, you know, when I first read the whole thing where the car wouldn't start, I was thinking like, oh, it's a horror movie, because that happens in every horror movie. When they get into a car, they're like, it won't start. You know, just it'll start just before the window shatters and someone gets pulled out by whatever Jason Voorhees monster looking creature decides to murder some teens in this horror movie. But you know, obviously this is real world, and so you need to come up with an explanation as to why the vehicle wouldn't start. And if you combine these 3 occurrences into one like super theory, yeah, like the only thing that could explain all 3 of them together without, you know, just kind of going for the low-hanging fruit and going aliens or something is that it's this paranormal something or rather that for some reason or another is able to affect, whether it's the chemical makeup of the paint or, you know, like the charges that bond the paint to this structure or whatever, but you know, somehow it's able to sabotage this paint every single time it gets done. And in this specific instance, it was able to manifest enough energy to physically growl at least twice. We know that it happened twice, and this is based on the testimony through the story, but it's entirely plausible that it could have been growling before then too, and they just didn't hear it. Like, or it could have done something, made some other noise, you know.
Yeah.
Who's to say that it wasn't a person, the ghost of a person that was, you know, saying like, get out, while DarklyKnighted was on the rafters of this gazebo. And you know, the 4 of them just didn't hear anything until that moment, and it was because the ghost just gave up at trying words and instead chose violence and decided to growl. And then yeah, and because it can affect electronics in the nearby area, it decided, no, you think you're leaving? And you know, they wouldn't let them start their car for 4 or 6 tries.
Yeah, I agree.
So in my not so expert opinion, DarklyKnighted, if you are listening to this, you got a ghost. At the very least, let's hope it's a ghost, because if it's a demon, then that's an actual problem.
Yeah, and it probably followed you home, and you should probably cleanse your house.
That would be terrifying, because, you know, yeah, like if it's a ghost, like can ghosts follow people home? Like, it's one of those things where it's like the ghost of the gazebo, which in the grand scheme of ghosts is like super lame. You know, you could be like, I'm the ghost of like, oh my god, what's the Queen Mary, is it? The ship? It's like, I'm the ghost of that, or like I'm a ghost at Alcatraz or something like that. And then it's just like, I'm the ghost of the gazebo. Like, you're like Sadness from Inside Out. You're just like the most depressed ghost ever because you haunt a gazebo, like, and it's a gazebo in a cemetery that people probably don't use all that often because, you know, they're too busy mourning and doing like valid things in this cemetery to actually go and have like tea in this gazebo. And yeah, if it is a demon, then cool. You know, that's a great. I would advise against going back to the cemetery and poking the proverbial bear, because if it is a demon, then, you know, yeah, it might entirely follow you home, and you know, home is where you sleep, so that's the last thing we need.
Yep. I definitely agree.
No matter where we are on Earth, and no matter how much we build and destroy, we are at the mercy of a wild, uncaring, unforgiving planet that's full of terror and mystery. Be sure to follow Strange Wilderness on TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and SoundCloud for the full immersive experience. Until the darkness calls us again, thank you so much for listening, and stay safe out there. Because out in the wild, anything can happen.